Nightcast. Stephen Lloyd Gilbreth brings you the current news from the world today and how it relates to Bible prophecy. Understanding the end-time events leading to the peaceful world tomorrow. Ladies and gentlemen, Stephen Lloyd Gilbreth.
Well, greetings, friends. Let's pop up here. Here we are. Greetings, friends, and welcome to...
This is a close-up look at the mountain lion stuff.
Welcome to this Wednesday night amateur hour here on Nightcast. We are experiencing a few problems tonight, and friends, that's because we've spent the day. We triggered that video prematurely. Let me stop it and back it up and get it ready to play from the beginning. I promised you the video last night about the mountain lion that was found underneath someone's home. We have that video for you. We'll play. Well, I wasn't going to play that at the beginning. I wanted to start tonight with a story about a typhoon that man makes, not the type that God makes, not nearly as big as the typhoons that God makes at all. Let me tell you about that in a moment. Let me just explain briefly at the beginning of our goofing up opening tonight that we spent much of the day. I mentioned to you last night in order to do the live event streaming on YouTube, we would need to increase our bandwidth and our uploading speed. Well, we contacted I spent the morning with our internet provider, and before the day was over, they were able to give us increased upload speed, more than double what we had, and we've been spending some time testing it. I have only a short program of news tonight. There's nothing that's so earth-shaking that won't wait till tomorrow night for us to cover it, except for a couple stories I have tonight that are important. We'll give you something to be able to pray as Christ instructed us in the model prayer, to pray, "Thy kingdom come," and as he instructed us in Luke 21, verse 36, to be watching and praying always about the things that relate to the first four seals from Revelation. Let me see if I can make some shot changes here. That'll get me what I need. Let me come back here to this. Luke 21, verse 36. He wanted us to be praying about these first four seals. When he said, watch, this is explicitly what he was talking about. You can read between the lines and read other things into this, as some have, to say, well, you've got to watch yourself and watch your conduct. That is true. However, and since things in the Bible, many things are dual, you can say, okay, you can take this as a dual thing there. However, you also need to take the very literal thing oftentimes that Christ is saying, and in this case, he had just covered the first four seals from the book of Revelation, chapter 6, and he was telling us in plain language what those first four seals meant. And then he says, watch and pray, and here's the promise he gives you for watching and praying these first four seals, so that you may be accounted worthy to escape all these things to come. Now, what's to come? Well, the next major event in prophecy is the fifth seal that you see pictured here after the first four. I've only got 5 of the 7 seals here on this part of the chart. And the fifth one, the one you see on the far right that's labeled Great Tribulation, the words that Christ used, he actually used Greek words that mean mega trouble, but as a synonym, the King James translators decided to render this as great tribulation because Christ had explained it as a time of trouble so great that no time of trouble before what's coming in the fifth seal, the great tribulation, no time before this of trouble since the beginning of the world, Christ said in Matthew 24, verse 20, 21, 22. I'll find it for you and tell you exactly what verse if you want to go be able to flip there in your own Bible and see it yourself. In Matthew 24, he said in verse 21. For then shall be great tribulation, such as was not since the beginning of the world to this time, no, nor ever shall be. In other words, no, nor ever shall be after this. The time that's coming, the time of trouble that's coming, that's so bad, nothing like it since the beginning of the world has ever occurred, will never again occur. No, he says, no, nor ever after. What is coming? It hasn't come yet. It's still in the future, but it's in the very, 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 very near future. Let me talk to you for a moment. Christ having explained by a parable, making a contrast when he said, when you see the branches of the fig tree, he said that in Matthew 24. In another chapter, a parallel chapter, he said, all trees, when you see the branches of any or all trees become tender and then start to bud, you know that summer is nigh. And then he made the contrast, the comparison. He said, likewise, when you see all these things coming to pass, these things on the chart here, the first 4 seals, that's where we are right now. And this is the moment he was talking about, because he said, when you see these things come to pass, he said, you know the kingdom of God is nigh, is near. However, the next thing in prophecy that's going to be a period of 2.5 years is the 5th seal, the Great Tribulation. And then if we open up this entire chart, you see there's 7 seals, and the 5th seal, the next major event in prophecy there, is a 2.5 year period, followed by heavenly signs. The sun, moon, the stars become dark, and the moon like blood. Then there is a sealing of 144,000. Now, God's elect from the Philadelphia era are already in a place of nourishment and protection and safety at the time of this 144,000. So, your guess is as good as mine, perhaps, or what has been expressed so far by the apostle for the end time, Mr. Herbert Armstrong. He never got definitive on this, and he did say at one time this could be 2 sets of 144,000. Then he said, well, we don't know. There's an innumerable multitude also. We don't know whether this 144,000 will include people that are in the place of nourishment, or if it'll be a whole nother 144,000 from those that didn't go to the place of safety, place of nourishment, protection, final training. But there's a sealing of 144,000 after 2.5 years of Great Tribulation. Then there's a whole year that the 7th seal plays out, and the 7th seal pictures 7 trumpets, and the last trumpet pictures 7 last plagues, the beginning of which Christ returns at that beginning of that 7th trump, and the beginning of the pouring out of the 7 last plagues. Christ returns at that point on that last trump. And so this chart gives the whole picture of what the 7 seals are. But for where we are right now, that relates to just this part of the chart. The first 4 seals were between the 4th seal and the 5th seal. The trouble part of the 4th seal, there's more than loimos to this 4th seal, the pale horse. There's more than disease epidemics, pestilence, and the plagues of Egypt. There's also seismic activity. Christ said between the 3rd and 5th seal. That only leaves you the 4th seal. Seismic activity, commotions in the air, such as gale force winds of all kind, hurricanes, typhoons, and tornadoes. And then he also said there would be tereke. In Mark 13, verse 8, there would be tereke, troubled waters, both literally and figuratively. Figuratively in the sense of roiling waters, mobs, and sedition, but literally also. And all of that trouble, that tereke trouble, it builds up, but is not the mega trouble, not the trouble of the 5th seal, the Great Tribulation, next major event to come, which, friends, you can avoid. Now, I listened to a man this morning who I know from Pasadena, I'm not going to mention his name, who does a little certain kind of a watch program, and he's certainly not a Mr. Armstrong. Neither am I. I'll be first to say, or at least emphasize to say. But the man I watched was interesting and I watched him in bed last night. While I was in bed, I took my little one of my little smartphones. I have several so that we can see how our live streaming signal comes across on these little phones. Sometimes I turn them on. We see, okay, that was coming across good on an Android phone. It's coming across good on a iPhone. It's not coming across at all as a live stream on these Windows phones that have become quite popular because whoever's behind Windows Phone, I think is that Microsoft, whoever's behind it has decided they would not support RMTF live streaming type of broadcast, which there's a lot of arguments going on the internet right now saying, Microsoft, you blew it. You're going to make a lot of people not buy these phones because of that. People want to be able to see live streaming on their little phones. I would love for this I love this little phone, but it doesn't carry live streaming, so not the only phone we have. And like I say, we've got several for testing. We've got Androids, iPhones, and anything else they come out, we'll probably get a version of it to test. But I had one of these phones in bed with me last night, and now for watching an archive video, you can watch that on any phone. So I think I watched that on this Windows phone because it's got bigger screen and a lot of memory and power. And anyway, I tuned into this fellow and played him while I was in bed last night. I had to jump out of my bed and pray. Scared me to death. I said, "Yikes!" And then as I prayed, I was calmed down and said, "Yeah, okay, now wait a minute." He's and really, you should be concerned, friends. If you don't have some concern, God can calm you, and He can help us, be doing what we need to be doing, and all we got to do is obey that promise. Now that takes sometimes energy and time and prioritizing in our lives to set ourselves so that we watch daily news. And then as Christ instructed us in the rest of that verse, I'm going to read that for you before we go on with news tonight. I know I'm doing a long introduction. I usually try to do it the other way, talk more at the end, get the news out of the way in the beginning, but I only have 2 or 3 stories. One about that typhoon, not a typhoon in the air, though, a typhoon created by man as a flying machine. We'll get there in just a moment. But I was saying, I wanted to read you Luke 21:36. Because there's a promise in there that's very encouraging. And just in case, if the news we give here tonight, friends, ever scares you to pieces, look to the promises of God. And I try to emphasize those promises. And one of the things that I've always been encouraged that Christ says, He says, "Oh, little flock, it's greatly my desire to give you the kingdom of God." I'll get that exact verse perhaps by tomorrow night or this weekend and go through that one with you. But this verse in Luke 21, verse 36 says, "Watch you therefore." Before that, he's telling you the 4 seals and telling you to take heed to yourselves in verse 34, "Lest any time at all your hearts be overcharged with surfeiting, with drunkenness and cares of this life, so that day come upon you unaware." Now, that supports some who say you got to watch your conduct too. Yes. So this is dual. Watch your conduct. And watch these 4 seals that he's just described before that verse. He's gone through them in very careful detail, telling us what the first horse means. "Many will come in my name saying that Jesus is the Christ, and yet they will deceive many." So he says, watch out for Antichrist, for false prophets, for false Christ, false religious organizations. Then the second seal, the red horse, that was the first seal, the white horse. The second seal, the red horse, war. He explains as war and rumors of war and world war, nation against nation, kingdom against kingdom. A situation that since Christ spoke didn't happen for over 1,900 years since he spoke that, because the First World War did not occur until 1914, until 1919. That was round 1 of Christ speaking about nation against nation, kingdom against kingdom, world war, in its ultimate form of nation against nation, world war. Round 2 came in 1940 to 1945, just generally, basically. Had 2 endings, ending in the Pacific Theater first, after the bombs were dropped on Japan, and then ending on the island in Japan, and then ending later in 1945 when Germany signed unconditional surrender, which we shouldn't forget. They signed unconditional surrender. But God says he's going to use the Assyrians again to punish his people Israel around the world where they are. And let's take a look at where they are for a moment. I'm just going to put it on the screen, let you look for yourself while I comment on that. God says if especially his people, these sons, tribes of Jacob, these 12 sons around the world that were divided into two houses, the house of Israel, 10 tribes, the house of Jacob, the house of the house of Israel, the house of Jacob into two tribes, the house of Judah, into two tribes, three tribes actually, Judah and a little bit of Benjamin and Levi. And here's where they are today, because God told us through Jacob, as he told his sons, where they would be in the latter days. He gave descriptions where you can trace it down, and it's very obvious who are in these described positions, and here they are listed from Genesis 29 on this slide on your screen right now. But that promise, I'm going to come out of that in just a moment. This promise in verse 36 of Luke 21 says, if you watch yourself and watch the world news and pray always, praying with your heart. Oh God, I just saw something happen in this area or that area. Please, thy kingdom come. Bring your kingdom, O God. Help these people over here who are suffering famine and starving. Help these people over here who are suffering wars of all kinds and civil wars and people being killed and having their heads cut off. And then help these people that are suffering all kind of disease epidemics, Ebola and other things that was rampant for a while and has not gone away, but just after a while, it's no longer news that so many people are dying every day from it. But it will be. I was reviewing some scriptures last night. The one I put up on the screen, that we'll put up on the screen later, from Revelation 6:8, talks about how 1/4 of mankind will be killed by 3 or 4 conditions. 3 of them from 3 specific of these seals from the book of Revelation. 3 of these seals are mentioned as wiping out 1/4 of mankind when they get into their big heyday before the 5th seal, the Great Tribulation. And that'll happen suddenly. It won't be a long-term build. It'll wham! It's going to slam, and 1/4 of the people will be dead from it. They will have had their warnings with Ebola and wars here and wars there, which should have gotten people on their knees, but not, especially I'm going to pick my country, especially in the United States. People want to isolate themselves to things that are going on terrible in other parts of the world and pretend like nothing's happening. We just go on with our lives, go on with our sinning, which is going to bring about a lot of the curses that God says. I'll just remind you, Leviticus 26, Deuteronomy 28, if you were wondering, what were those blessing and cursing chapters this fellow's been mentioning that I heard Mr. Armstrong on broadcast in the past mention? They are Leviticus 26, Deuteronomy 28. Write them down if you need to. Read them later and see how in the first half of each of those 2 chapters, God promises specific blessings, including, I'll just mention one at the moment, rain in due season, which means no droughts, no flooding, because rain in due season means the right amount of rain at the right time. Not too much, not too little, not droughts, not flooding. Rain in due season. That's a promise to you as an individual and collectively you as multiple individuals, as a nation, if you are obeying your Creator, diligently hearkening to the voice of the great God and obeying His commandments, His statutes, His judgments. And you can read, and then in the latter half of those 2 chapters, just the opposite of the blessings, cursing if we don't obey. All right. With all of that as an introduction, I didn't finish verse 36. The last half of verse 36 says, "Watch you therefore and pray always." And why? He gives us an answer to the question why. So that you may be accounted worthy to escape all these things that shall come to pass. Again, what's next? After the first four seals, you see the fifth seal is the great tribulation. And God is saying, if you watch and you pray always, there's an encouraging promise right there in that one verse. Do these couple things. Faithfully do them, so that you may be accounted worthy to escape all these things coming to pass that begin with the great tribulation. God, if you worry of that, you won't have to be around to face the beast and bowing down to that beast, or working on the Sabbath, causing you to take the mark of the beast. And when you take the mark of the beast, that's when God says you suffer the day of the Lord, the seventh seal, and all of the woes, the four winds, the three woes, and the last woe being those seven last plagues, where men will want to hide them. And this is the punishment of God. The great tribulation is the wrath of Satan. And nothing compared to the wrath of God coming in the seventh seal. Much better to obey now and be accounted worthy to escape, because God's punishment, you won't escape God's punishment. He's going to make sure you get the point, and it's corrective, and it's very corrective. By the time we get to the seventh seal, it is extremely corrective, something you don't want to be considered to be accursed of God and to go through. All right, friends, let's wrap up this program tonight with a little bit of news. This first story, I mentioned to you the Typhoons of man that are flying machines. Man's flying machines called Typhoons were launched on Tuesday. Today's Wednesday, so we're talking about yesterday. Were launched yesterday after two Russian aircraft were seen flying close to the UK airspace. The Ministry of Defense, we're talking about the Ministry of Defense of the UK, said Typhoons from England's Royal Air Force were deployed after Russian aircraft were identified flying close to UK airspace. The Russian planes later turned around, flying back north past Norway. We've got video report with Jonathan Hull.
Not the first time these two Russian Bear long-range bombers were first spotted traveling south off the coast of Norway. They were intercepted by RAF Typhoons, scrambled from Lossiemouth as they came close to UK airspace but didn't actually enter UK airspace. Now, in itself, this is not that unusual. It's happening about once every month, testing the UK's air defences, also showing an increasingly assertive Russia flexing its military muscle. But what's different this time is that it is coinciding with a major military exercise involving 50 warships, NATO warships, dozens of aircraft, thousands of military personnel taking place off the coast of Scotland. David Cameron said last month that this would send a clear message to those that threaten us, while the Russians have sent their own message just now, and that is they're not going to be intimidated either.
Okay, thank you, Jonathan Beal. Sounds like Russia's not going to be intimidated. It sounds like both sides are flexing their muscles, and exactly the kind of situation that fosters war. All right, friends, I mentioned to you about the seals. One of those seals, even though Christ didn't mention it in plain language, I went through last night, as I told you I would do, I went through Matthew 24, Mark 13, and Luke 21, and unless I just missed it as I went through them, I didn't find anywhere where Christ was mentioning wild animals in those chapters where he explains in plain language what's being said in Revelation. We'll come to that scripture in Revelation 6, verse 8, after we take a look at the video I promised I would get you last night on the young mountain lion that took up residence under a house in Los Angeles. And at the time of this video yesterday, he was resisting all efforts to dislodge him or her, a mountain lion, to dislodge it, the mountain lion. The alarm was raised by workmen who found themselves face to face with the big cat while installing a residential security system in the Los Feliz district of the city. ABC News reporter Alex Michelson. Oh, let me see, friends. Do we have... This is going to be a third-party report. ABC. ABC is usually pretty good about honoring the third-party agreements via and through the BBC News with whom we have license. If not, I'm going to have a big fight on my hands. I promised I'm going to show you this. I'll appreciate your prayers that our licensing is going to cover this third party. I'll get a hold of ABC as fast as I can and make sure we've got third party flow through coverage for this. We're live streaming, so it could flag me right away. I've had one I'm having to deal with right now. This will be two. It may cut off my live streaming, friends. I'm taking a little risk, but we're going to do it. Because this actually is current news, and so I do have a good fair use argument that I may have to fight in court in case somebody gets nasty about news reporting fair use on this third-party arrangement. We'll find out. ABC, you guys are usually good. I hope you're going to go in the good faith I'm going with on this, because you've given BBC News license on this, who licenses us to play stuff from their database. ABC News reporter Alex Michelson has the details in this video.
This is a close-up look at the mountain lion stuck under a Los Feliz home. Fish and wildlife officials shoot at it with beanbag round after beanbag round, trying to scare the cat away. They use a tennis ball launcher and even poke it with a stick, but the cat refuses to move. After a while, crews give up for the night.
We're going to let him settle. We're going to let everything calm down. We're going to be really still and give him time to get out of there.
The homeowners say the big cat is first discovered by crews working inside the crawl space.
The one worker came sprinting through our house, white-faced, shouting, "There's a mountain lion under your house."
And I thought he was punking me, frankly.
I don't think I've ever seen a mountain lion ever that close, except for on videos or TV.
Armando Navarrete of LA Animal Services called to confirm if it is indeed a mountain lion.
All right, friends, I'm going to come on out of it right there. I wanted you to just see that mountain lion. I'm cutting out early because one of the conditions for fair use is if you don't use the whole piece. So I'm going to, just to avoid a potential problem, I'm cutting out early. You saw the mountain lion. It is reported to be under a house in Los Feliz. As you saw, they could not get it out yesterday as they were shooting at it. And they decided, shooting at it with beanbags, and they decided to leave it there and see if after things settled down it would just come out on its own, but I've seen no further news on that yet today. That mountain lion could still be using that underground space like a den where mountain lions are instinctively want to go. They like to get inside, hide in dens, and so this underground space under this house is like a den to that mountain lion. So, and the point of this news story, and this is a current news story, news reporting story. That gives me fair use of it. So, if any of you are going to argue you've got exclusive rights over it, Section 106 does say that. That you cannot, there's a limitation on exclusive rights on news reporting. And I didn't use the whole clip. As you can see, I only used a portion of it. But I wanted you to see this, friends, because one of the things in Revelation 6, verse 9, let's see if I can get to this, if we hadn't frozen up my slides. Here it is. Revelation 6, verse 8. At the end of this verse, let me pull it forward and read this to you. At the very end of this verse, it talks about beast of the earth being part of three things that God says will kill the fourth part of the earth, 1/4 of all mankind. Let's read this. And I looked, and behold, a pale horse, and his name that sat on that pale horse was Death. The rider of this pale horse is named Death. And Hell, the Greek word for hell used there is Hades, meaning the grave. And the grave followed with him. And power was given unto them. Now, when it says unto them, it's not referring to this only to this pale horse and the rider named Death and the grave riding along beside him. This is talking about three of the first four seals and the horses. It's talking about the red horse, the black horse, and the pale horse, because he says power was given to them over the fourth part of the earth, 1/4 of all mankind, to kill with the red horse, sword, war, and rumors of war, and world war, and with hunger, the black horse, with the black horse of famine, hunger, and with death, the pale horse whose rider is, the rider of the pale horse is named Death. And so with death, that refers back to the pale horse. So you've got the sword, the red horse, the hunger, the black horse of famine, Death, the fourth, the pale horse, and its rider named Death. And then it says, beside those three seals, it says, and with the beast of the earth. And the word there in the Greek for the beast of the earth are venomous and wild animals, is the Greek-English lexicon definition of the beast that's mentioned there. Wild animals, venomous animals. So your mountain lions, they are wild animals that can kill people. That surveillance company worker came out like the lady described him, being totally white, flushed, white face flushed white. White from fear, because mountain lions, they do attack and kill people. And there's a wild animal now roaming right there in Los Feliz, a suburb of Los Angeles. Yesterday's news, we had a story about a man on a golf course. As his ball went into a little pond, he went over to get it. On his way back out of the pond, he saw the crocodile as he went in. And as he came out of the water, the crocodile swam over and bit him on the leg. And the crocodiles are starting to go to golf courses where they have little ponds and things. So we are being in the beginning stages of being infiltrated. Our cities and towns where God once had us protected and the wild animals driven out, they're now coming in. Small beginning, a wake-up signal to repent, friends. Follow what God says in Leviticus 26, Deuteronomy 28, if you want blessings and protection from God. If you don't care, then ignore that and get the curses, including the curse, the ultimate, Leviticus 26, verse 19, the breaking of the pride of the power of the nation, leading to the ultimate curse that God says will happen through the prophet Ezekiel. And chapter 6, verse 6 of Ezekiel. Very easy to remember. It's like 666, but just two of the sixes. Chapter 6, verse 6, 6, Ezekiel 6, 6, where God says, I will lay waste all of your cities if you continue to disobey me and not repent of disobeying me, with all kind of ugly and wicked things like pornography, marriages that are not marriages. God says marriage, which he instituted, is between a man and a woman. Anything else is perverse and just a perverted form of adultery. And worse than adultery, because it's perversion, it's obnoxious, it's queer, to put it bluntly. Well, friends, that's it for tonight's report. This Wednesday night, we were testing, and the indications we're getting on screen over here from YouTube says signal is good. Indication I'm getting over here from our encoder is that we're sending out full 30 frames right now. At the beginning, I was getting some warning message that we were dropping frames like crazy in the beginning. So hopefully we improved as we went tonight. We upgraded our internet stream, our upstream, our bandwidth for upstreaming. We may have to upgrade our system that encodes and sends out the live stream, our computer equipment, because we're running CPU. Well, we're still running 65, 70%. So we're doing okay. But we dropped frames a lot in the beginning for some reason. Anyway, we were testing tonight. We'll as we find out what we need to correct, we'll ask God to help give us supply the things we need to be able to do it. And I hope we try to offer you a service and offer it to you in the best way we can. When we're able, we'll also go up to an even higher stream, get bigger, better equipment so we can send out a signal for those of you who've got the huge screens on the wall, where one of you in Los Angeles told me, hey, you're a little fuzzy. So that means we're going to have to do an additional stream with more bandwidth. So, but most of you get it, I think, okay on your small devices, on your regular size computer screens, and give us feedback so we know what to do, and give us prayers regarding that. If you appreciate this program, just ask God to bless us and help us be able to give what helps us serve you the best. We are running approximately an average of 50 viewers per program, sometimes a little less, sometimes a little more, sometimes up to 200. And one night we had over 3,500 views on our news program. And I'm still scratching my head and studying the analytics, trying to figure out what happened that evening, that our viewership shot up like crazy, which shows you that kind of thing can happen overnight. So, friends, your prayers are appreciated. We do this nightly. I've sometimes gone through some efforts to be able to be here and be on time with it. When I had things happen during the day where I couldn't put the time to it I would like to have, and yet we break our necks and still get on anyway. And I'm just sharing with you tonight, being open since we're testing things tonight. And let me just say thank you for joining us. We're working on things to make this, improve this, and we appreciate those of you who appreciate our being here. And God willing, and the creek don't rise, we'll be back again tomorrow night, Thursday night, here on Nightcast with the day's current news. And I'll cover the things we didn't cover today. We'll try to get them in tomorrow night. Some not over earth-shaking things, but some things you should know about. So until then, this is your host, Stephen Lloyd Gilbreth, saying so long and good night, friends.
You have been watching Nightcast with Stephen Lloyd Gilbreth. Nightcast can be seen Sunday through Thursday nights here on cogtv.org. Tonight's program is also available anytime on demand in the cogtv.org video archive.